Is Dimentio the most evil Mario villain? The frick he is! No, he's not even the second most evil Mario villain. So stop commenting on my true video about Dimentio. And if you're one of those people who believes otherwise, prepare to be proven wrong. Also subscribe for more correct Mario takes. Look at this drawing of Dimentio that my sister did for me. It usually sits on my shelf back there. Isn't it nice? Yeah, she drew that. She did a really good job.
Today we're going to examine a few of the most evil Mario villains and try to determine how evil they are in comparison to one another. I don't promise I'll find the one true most evil villain, but I am at least going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it isn't Giggles over here. When examining these wicked individuals and groups, we're going to look at three different categories. The villain's motives, i.e. the reason for their villainy, their actions, what they actually did crime-wise during their tenure as villains, and their intentions, what their endgame would be if Mario and co hadn't stepped in to stop them. We'll consider all three of these categories to see which villain is a cut above the rest, which is most despicable. Alright, let's start with the clown since I put in the effort to draw him for the thumbnail. Dimentio's motives are nigh impossible to get a handle on, given he's a mysterious figure with no confirmed backstory, and what we do know is vague, contradictory, and not even guaranteed to be about him. Even the background section of his Super Mario wiki page is really short and gives no clue as to his motivation for wanting the Chaos Heart. So until Nintendo gives us any concrete information about his past, I'm just going to put his motivations down as unknown. So far as we're aware, someone forgot to put bacon on his McDonald's burger and he decided all of reality deserved to die for this sin. Though to be honest, doing evil acts for no discernible reason is more evil than having a sympathetic motive. I'll give the clown that. Next, we'll look at what Dimentio did. I'll admit, Chuckles here has done some bad stuff. Indirectly caused the death of an innocent cyborg dragon, temporarily turned a warrior into a vegetable, and briefly destroyed 3 dimensions after yoinking control of the Chaos Heart, likely killing trillions. Hot take I know, but I don't think that was very nice of him. That last thing is definitely his greatest claim to villainous fame, but it's also what exposes him as a hack fraud! His most evil act is really stealing the big kill everyone MacGuffin that the main villain was already using to kill everyone. Dimentio is clever. He's a mastermind and a backstabber, but he's also an opportunist. The worst thing he did was only possible because someone else already did all the work and he stepped in to steal the spotlight. He wouldn't have been able to do it without Bleck doing most of the work for him. You might say that this detail doesn't matter because the Chaos Heart destroyed more dimensions under Dimentio's control than it did under Count Bleck's control. To that I say, wait until the end of the video for the conclusive proof of my thesis. Oh, and in the Shroobs video comment section, people kept bringing up that he's especially evil because he's the only person to ever canonically kill Mario, which, firstly, is completely untrue. Have you ever even played a Mario game before? Dude dies all the time. That honor goes to this guy. Or if we're talking about Paper Mario specifically, Bowser did kill him in the opening of 64, and he needed reviving by the Star Spirits. And secondly, he literally didn't kill them. This is a dimensional warp disguised as an explosion. My source is JD's, the literal ruler of the Mario underworld. I'd say she's the foremost expert on death, but people seem to forget this line of dialogue exists. Then we have Dimentio's intended result for his evil grand plan. He intended to destroy all worlds and create perfect new ones in his image. But speaking of the Chaos Heart, what was it the previous wielder wanted to do with it again? Oh yeah, that's right. Destroy everything and leave it destroyed with nothing left. Or at least that's what Dimentio tells us. Though he is a known liar, the destructive rumblings throughout Castle Bleck and the fact Dimentio is telling the truth about many things in the same encounter lead me to believe him on this. I don't believe Bleck had any intention of creating a new perfect world after the destruction of everything. He felt all existence deserved eternal death. I don't buy his lies. I dub Dimentio's plan as inherently less evil than what Bleck had intended. He made Dimension D after the Void appeared so he could wait out the destruction inside it and make a reality of his liking after the killing was done. That's still abhorrent, don't get me wrong, but he at least intended for life and existence to continue after the dust had settled, even if it would just be his life. Next on our rogues gallery we have Dimentio's aforementioned more evil boss, Count Bleck. I've already spoken about him a bit so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. We know loads more about the Count's motives than we do about Dimmy over here. He sees reality itself as responsible for taking away the love of his life. So he's decided to destroy everything and everyone in existence. His doing it for love motivation does make him seem at least a bit less evil and more sympathetic than Dimentio's lack of any known reason for wanting to use the Chaos Heart. Less evil, in this one category. The other two categories, on the other hand... Count Bleck spent many years preparing to unleash the Chaos Heart in accordance with the Dark Prognosticus, and then he did just that, bringing out the void that obliterated one dimension under his control, and then 3 more under Dimentio's, which I also say counts as being more Bleck's fault than Dimmy's, since the Master of Dimensions wouldn't be able to do that without the Count's help. Count Bleck did some less villainous stuff at the end of the game too, but let's save that for this video's secret final section. In terms of Count Bleck's intentions, his plan is essentially the same as what the Daleks were doing in the series 4 finale of Doctor Who with the reality bomb, only worse, because at least the Daleks were going to survive after using it. This is the total annihilation of all creation. Nothing will exist or matter once the plan has come to full fruition. In terms of stakes, no other Mario villain has come close. Bleck is, in my opinion, the only competition the Shroobs have for the title of Most Evil, but we'll get to talking about them a little later. So, thus far we've covered 2 different villains who are only really a threat because of a big evil MacGuffin they had. But what about villains who are big evil MacGuffins? I'm talking about the Dark Star and the Shadow Queen. Both of them are powerful beings that are simply evil by nature. We don't really know anything about the Shadow Queen's origins or motivations, just that she appeared one day, sunk a city, and had plans for world domination. Pretty basic villain stuff, really. She just possesses the vague evilness powers needed to do it without some kind of MacGuffin. Well, except the crystal stars, but she made them to strengthen her power. They're not the source of it. Then we have the Dark Star, which is supposedly a manifestation of evil itself. I'm pretty sure this thing is just straight up made of evil. Like, if evil was on the periodic table, that's all you'd be able to taste if you ate this guy. Sorry, I've been watching Delicious in Dungeon recently. So if all that's the case, then if we were tackling this question by looking at evil as a solid, quantifiable form of matter, this guy would win by technicality. But the way I look at it, this guy is barely sentient. He doesn't have a conscious motive to do evil acts. He's simply evil because that's his nature. It's literally written into his DNA. In my eyes, that puts the Dark Star more into the category of some kind of natural disaster than a villain. Think about it. This thing doesn't have the option or choice to not be evil. It's incapable of good because it's not part of his nature. It's not within his abilities. All the rest of the characters we're looking at today are people who possess thinking ability and free will. They do evil acts because they choose to, but given different circumstances or decisions, they could have just as easily chosen the path of good instead. But they made the decision to be evil. Bowser chooses to rob people of their freedom through kidnapping. The Shroobs choose to drain the essence out of Toads until they die. Forful chose to drain the Dark Star of its energy to become more powerful and rule the world. But an earthquake doesn't choose to destroy homes, and a tsunami doesn't choose to drown people. I'm not taking the Dark Star seriously as a contender for most evil Mario villain for the same reason I'm not counting the Chaos Heart as a villain. It simply exists to be evil and cause destruction. It does have some level of intelligence and thought. We do see it speak when it takes on Bowser's form, but I still see it as more MacGuffin than man. When the path of righteousness isn't an option, walking the path of evil has little to no meaning. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to talk about its crimes and intentions. It fights Mario, Luigi, and Bowser, makes a tornado, traps people inside bubbles. This thing didn't really get much of a chance to do any evil, and as such, I'm really not sure what its endgame was either. Dark Bowser says he'll make the kingdom disappear? That's pretty bad, I guess. Anyway, it's Shroob time. This video is, after all, a sequel to the by far most viewed video on my channel, Why the Shroobs Are Mario's Most Evil Villains. Considering how well that video performed, I'm surprised it took me over 4 years to make a follow-up to it. The idea for this video sprang from the sheer number of comments from people on that old one saying Dimentio is actually the most evil villain. And even though I reply to them often with my reasoning as to why I believe he isn't, people keep saying it. But I still stand by what I said back then. So here I am to defend my viewpoint in yet another video. The Shrubs are, of course, not one villain, but an entire villainous race. Though we don't see any signs of factions among them that disagree with their leaders' goals, they are very united in their actions, so I'm grouping them together for the purposes of this video. I may have written a few comics as a kid where some of the survivors were trying to turn over a new leaf and continue their species' existence peacefully, but sadly that's not canon. The Shroobs' motives, as we see in the game, are simply to survive and consume. We don't get told any kind of reason why they're so warlike or disrespectful to life other than themselves. In fact, we don't get much concrete lore on them at all. You can say that you at least respect their desire to survive, but the way they go about usurping the life of others to ensure that survival without ever giving peace a chance leaves me with very little sympathy for their plight. I've actually had people in the comments section of that video defending the Shroobs' actions and partners in time as necessary for their survival and that they are to be pitied.
Don't tell me you'd object to a little genocide in the name of self-defense.
However, hot take, I know, but I don't think that brutal genocide is ever the right answer. Speaking of attempted genocide, let's move on to the actions and various atrocities that the Shroobs committed. Before the events of the game, the Shroobs squeezed what we're told is their home planet dry of its resources until it was nothing but a lifeless husk. Then once they spot a planet rich in life and resources, the Mushroom World, they assemble their vast armada and go in guns blazing. No attempt to open a dialogue with the locals for trade or peaceful coexistence, they show up and open fire. Once they land on the planet, they use all sorts of foul methods to drain its resources and make everyone suffer. They violate the Geneva Conventions a lot! The Shroobs are experts in biological engineering. And regular engineering too, I guess. Their technology is very advanced. So once they've captured the toads that survived the opening onslaught, they deposited them in the Toadwood Forest, where they were held in place by the genetically modified trees and drained of their essence to be used as fuel. See these toads? Dead. And they don't come back. The Shroobs have literally murdered the Mario Universe equivalent of Santa Claus. And I don't celebrate Christmas, but that's cold. They do similar things to the Yoshis, creating Yube as a huge biological weapon to create more of itself and cause destruction and death. The Shroobs destroy or consume everything they touch with zero concern or respect for the lives they take or the suffering they cause. Dimentio and Count Bleck probably have a higher body count, sure, but the Shroobs were cruel. They got their hands dirty and committed their atrocities on a much more personal level. Rather than just flicking the switch on the big kill-everything MacGuffin, where countless people would just fade away far from view, the Shroobs murdered many people personally, and, as it seems, much more painfully. Even though they have technically killed less, there's something I didn't think of while writing this script, is that the Shroobs' murders don't get undone. The toads stay dead. Whereas Count Bleck and Dimentio's murders may have been way more numerous, they do get undone at the end of the game. So I guess we can count the Shroobs as having a higher body count in the long run. Their methods were far more cruel and callous than any other Mario villain I can think of. It's interesting to consider what the Shroobs' actions and intentions would be post-victory, because unlike most Mario villains, they don't have much in the way of an outright stated plan for the future. They have very few lines of dialogue we can understand, after all. The best we can do here is theorycraft based on their past actions and behaviour. The Shroobs' home planet was abandoned for a place with more resources because they'd squeezed it dry, yes, but do we know for sure that's their first planet? The Shroobs seem very organised and competent with their attack. If this were their first interplanetary conquest, I don't think they would have been this effective. And they set up shop with evil factories and whatnot very quickly too. They knew what they were doing. And I'm willing to bet this isn't the first time they've done this. I think the Mushroom World was just one planet in a long line of worlds that the Shroobs invaded to consume. And I don't think the previous planets were as fortunate. I have no doubt that if the Shroobs had their way, this world would eventually dry up like their previous one, and they'd move on looking for yet more sources of nourishment across the universe, spreading and growing their empire until eventually there would be nobody left but them. After that, I don't know. Would they starve? fight each other, develop dimension-hopping technology to invade other realities and truly become a threat on Count Bleck's level, stop short of consuming all other life in favor of keeping some of it alive to be consumed like livestock, be they sentient or not, because I truly believe they don't care? We can't know. But all the possibilities look very bleak. So Shroobs' motives are they view all other life simply as a buffet for them to consume. Their actions are the total draining and killing of at least one planet's resources, mass murder of a civilian population, malicious genetic engineering to turn the planet's inhabitants against themselves, torture, and a total lack of respect for life. Their potential plans for future evil acts range from eventual annihilation of all life in the universe at least, and total annihilation of all life in the Mario multiverse on a similar level to Bleck but much slower and with far more suffering at worst. But a lot of that is hypothetical. Count Bleck and Dimentio still have the ultimately more destructive evil goals, right? I'm glad you asked, because it's time for our secret final segment of the video. Wait! That villain is saving the day! Our first contestant is Count Bleck, or should I say Lord Blumiere, because after having his ass thoroughly kicked by the four heroes, he welcomed his death and even switched sides to save all worlds instead of destroying them.
Wait, that villain is saving the day!
This definitely doesn't just make up for all the horrendous acts he's committed, but he still gave his life to undo the chaos he brought about in the first place, and I'd call that decent grounds for dismissal from the running for the position of most evil Mario villain. Really, Bleck? Saving reality? It's like you're not even trying to win.
Quick question, how many heroes were there in Super Paper Mario? And which was the most important one? If you answered 4 and Mario, you're dead wrong! There are 5 heroes because Dimentio is the most important one of them all! Dimentio saved all worlds from certain doom! He was the hero all along! Every last one of you who thought him the most evil are fools! Fools!
After muscling his way into Bleck's employ, though he had been turned down at first, it was Dimentio's plan from the beginning to undermine the organization from the inside. He put much more work into forestall the void than Bleck did in his last-minute change of heart. He rescued Peach, one of the heroes needed to progress through the game and defeat Count Bleck, from being brainwashed and sent her to Mario's side unharmed. He brought Bowser, another necessary hero, to meet Mario in Chapter 3 along with his minions. He freed Luigi of his brainwashing and sent him Mario's way too. It's funny that without Dimentio's help, Mario would not have been able to recruit any of the 3 extra heroes that would be necessary to stop Bleck. When one of the Pure Hearts became inert and the heroes were left with literally no way to progress to save reality, Dimentio stepped in and transported them to where they needed to be to get it fixed and continue onward. Every step of the way, Dimentio was working in the background to make sure the heroes could stop Count Bleck from destroying all worlds. Sure, he was doing it for his own ends to take control of the Chaos Heart for himself, but remember, if it weren't for his many helpful actions, it wouldn't have been possible for the heroes to win.
Wait, that villain is saving the day!
If Dimentio had either stayed out of the whole ordeal or just been an obedient little minion, there wouldn't be anything left of reality but a featureless white void. Maybe calling him hero is too far, but you can't deny he was as important to stopping the end of all worlds as any of the heroes, maybe even more important. Even though saving reality was an unintended consequence of his actions, he's still very much partly responsible for this happy ending. So to wrap it up, is Dimentio the most evil Mario villain? I certainly don't think so. The worst he ever could have done would just be what Count Bleck was already doing, but literally not as bad. And he honestly did more to help the heroes than hinder them in Super Paper Mario. If SPM wasn't as interesting and Dimentio wasn't the twist final boss and we just killed Bleck to win, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But he stepped in at the last minute and stole Bleck's villain cred along with his Chaos Heart. I, for one, believe that the Shroobs are the most evil Mario villains, partly because of their cruelty and callous disregard for life that Dimentio does share to some degree, but amplified to the level of a whole race, and partly because I believe, given the right time and resources, that the Shroobs could have been just as big a threat as Bleck, only it would have been a much longer, more painful road. I mean, imagine what the Shroobs would do with a big, powerful, evil MacGuffin. That, and the fact that they have no known redeeming qualities, which Dimentio and Black both have. I honestly think it's fair if you want to say Black is the most evil. He did bring the highest immediate stakes, after all. But please, let's abandon the notion that the clown is the most evil, because he isn't. He's third place at best. Until next time, farewell everyone. Now go to the comment section and argue with the wall!